Hello LEGO engineers, welcome back for another awesome LEGO engineering project with teacher Richard. Today we are going to be building the LEGO Scarecrow. Okay, so make sure that you have your Scarecrow blueprints in front of you. Make sure you have all your pieces from your kit. Remember, if you have a project that you built using the same kit, you need to take that project fully apart so you make sure you have all the pieces you need for your Scarecrow. Okay, now our Scarecrow today, engineers, is going to be using our crown gear, okay, to make our Scarecrow's arms spin around. And remember, we used our crown gear on the goal scoring robot to make our robot be able to move its arm this way to hit pucks and balls, okay? But today we're going to be using the crown gear to make the arms on our Scarecrow spin this way like the blades of a helicopter. All right, so we're going to be using the same engineering piece to do something completely different today. So I'm excited to build this awesome project. We're going to start right on step one. Okay, we're going to build our sturdy foundation for our Scarecrow so that even when we make its arms super long and when we make it spin super fast, it's not going to tip over. All right, so to do our foundation, we're going to start with a 7-hole red brick. Okay, and remember that your pieces might be a different color than mine, but that is totally okay. As long as they're the same size, all right, they'll be able to perform the same function. Okay, so this is a 7-hole brick, and I'm putting my 2 connector pegs, each of them 1 hole in from the end. So you should have 1, 2, 3 holes in between the 2 gray connector pegs. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. 2 connector pegs, each 1 hole from the end, 3 holes in between. Okay, and then remember, we've talked about foundations with our other projects. We want the foundation for our Scarecrow to be as big as possible. Okay, so to help make it longer, what we're going to do is we're going to connect our 7-hole red bricks into our longest 15-hole bricks. All right, you don't have to count the number of holes on these ones, but they're the longest ones in your kit. All right, so we're going to connect it so that's right in the middle, which means we should have 1, 2, 3.5 bricks on one side and about 3.5 holes on one side and 3.5 holes on the other side that are showing. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other one. Okay, and this is going to be our 2 foundation pieces, engineers. Now, when we build our Scarecrow, when we start going up, okay, we're going to make sure that our foundation pieces are on the outside and our Scarecrow gets built towards the middle. Okay, think about how the Eiffel Tower is built, and I built that project in another one of my videos. When they build the Eiffel Tower, they start on the outside and then they come up towards the middle, and as it goes up, it stays in the middle. Okay, that's going to make it much more sturdy than if we start in the middle and we build up and out like this. Okay, because then you have way more weight that's on either side of your foundation. Okay, so if there's any wind or an earthquake, it can easily tilt or fall one way or the other. Okay, so we're going to make sure our foundation is nice and wide apart like that. Now, once we have our foundation built, then we're going to take our 3 of our rectangle bricks like this. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Going to take 3 of our rectangle bricks like this, and we're going to put them right in the middle of our 7-hole and 15-hole red bricks so that there's 2 dots on either side. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, 1, 2, 3 rectangle bricks, and we're going to put it right up here. Check that out, engineers. Okay, now we are going to take 2 more of our 7-hole red bricks, and we're going to put them right on top of those rectangles we just added. All right, so this is what yours should look like right now. And then on the very top, to make sure that it's just the right size to get our crown gear connected, we're going to take 2 of our thin 4x1 bricks like this. Okay, we're going to put those on top of the 7-hole red bricks. Remember, these thin bricks are good when we want to get something just a little bit higher, but not the full height of a regular sized brick. Okay, and remember that these skinny bricks, you can take 3 skinny bricks is the same height as 1 regular brick. All right, so we have our foundation piece we built, 1, 2, 3 rectangles, a 7-hole brick, and our skinny brick on top of that. Okay, so now we have our foundation built, right? And it's in 2 separate pieces. Okay, so now we are done with step 4. We're gonna flip it over and we're gonna go to step 5. All right, and now we're gonna make the piece that we can use to connect these 2 foundation bricks together. All right, and we're also going to attach our crown gear. So for this step, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 8 long axle. Okay, it's not your longest axle and it's not your shortest one, it's your medium one, and it should be black. Okay, and we're gonna put it through the middle hole of our 7-hole rectangle brick like this. Okay, so we're gonna put our axle right through the middle hole, and then we're going to attach our crown gear with the teeth pointing down. Okay, remember the teeth aren't sharp, you can touch them, but they are a little bit pointy. Okay, so we want to make sure that the points are going down on our crown gear. So we're gonna have it go right like this. All right, we have the teeth pointing down on our crown gear. All right, and then if I move my finger, what's gonna happen? It's gonna fall out. We do not want that. Okay, so what piece can we put right here to help make sure it stays in place? Right, we can use our lock brick like we have with our other projects, okay? So I'm gonna take my lock piece, slide it on the axle. All right, I want a little bit of room. I want a little bit of room on my axle below the crown gear, and then my lock piece is on top here, okay? Now engineers, you can hear some of the birds in the background. Well, hopefully you can. I can hear them pretty loud. All right, there are some birds in my yard today, and I wanted you to be able to hear them because do you know what farmers use Scarecrow for? They use them to scare off birds and other animals who want to eat their crops, okay? So our Scarecrow is gonna be a little bit cooler than a regular Scarecrow. So I've got my rectangle brick with my crown gear, my lock, my axle sticking up. We're gonna connect it together using our 2 foundation pieces like that. All right, and this is what yours should look like after step 6. Okay, engineers? Now most Scarecrows, okay, they'll take an old shirt that the farmer used to wear and they'll fill it with straw or hay, right? And then they make it look like a person, okay? And then they attach it to a post and they stick it up in the farm so that any birds that fly by really quick would think that somebody's out there in the field and they wouldn't stop to come and eat the food, okay? But our Scarecrow, all right, we're gonna pretend that the birds we're working with are some pretty smart birds because birds are very intelligent animals, okay? So when we made our Scarecrow and it wasn't moving, the birds figured out eventually that it wasn't a real person, right? Because if you stared at someone for 10 minutes and they were perfectly still, you would think something was pretty suspicious, right? Because they would need to breathe, blink their eyes, stretch. So we're gonna figure out how to make our Scarecrow move, okay? So that it looks like a real person, all right? And we're gonna try to make it move as fast as possible because the faster it moves, the scarier it's going to be to birds, okay? So that's the goal of our Scarecrow, is take an original Scarecrow idea and make it even better using some of the engineering pieces, all right? So for this next step, we're going to take 2 of our 11-hole bricks. We're gonna stack them right on top of each other. We're gonna take our other 8-long axle. We're gonna put it through the top middle hole, okay? And then we're going to attach our largest 40-tooth gear. So we're going to tack our 40-tooth gear on that end, right there. And then to make sure it doesn't slide, we're going to attach a lock piece on the back. Because we want our gear and our axle to spin, right? But we don't want it to slide back and forth because we need it to be in a really precise spot, okay? If it could slide even this much, even that much, it would make our project not work properly. Okay, and I'm gonna show you why on this next step. So we want it to be able to spin, but we do not want to make it move back and forth because it has to be in a very precise location, okay? Because most engineering projects, they have some bricks, some pieces where you can change the space a little bit. You can put them in a different spot to make it look different, like when we're on the design aspect of our Scarecrow. but the functioning parts, right, the parts that move, the parts that help it do the job we want it to, those parts need to be in the perfect spot to make work, okay? So for this next step, it's a little bit tricky, so I'm gonna try to show you the best I can, all right, of how I'm doing it, and then I'll show you what it's supposed to look like after I'm done. So we're gonna take this new piece that we just built, all right, and we're gonna wanna put it right up next to these rectangle bricks right here. And we want the big gear to be pointing in, so it's facing the crown gear. Okay, so I'm gonna push it down, make sure it's nice and sturdy. So we're gonna put it all the way up next to the rectangles, and then I'm gonna push it down. So I'm pushing it down here, and I'm pushing it down here, so that it's connected to our foundation bricks. Okay, and then this is what it should look like once you've connected yours. Okay, this is what it looks like on one side, and this is what it looks like on the other side. Now the goal, engineers, is to have it so that our crown gear is touching the teeth of our big gear. Now I'm going to show you right now, when I spin my large gear, does it spin the crown gear? No, right? There's a little bit of a gap there. Okay, so the teeth aren't touching. So that's part of the reason I said that the placement of the two pieces has to be precise, because even just that tiny little gap, right, that's less than a centimeter, makes it so our project does not work at all, right? Just 1 centimeter can turn a project from working to not working. So what I'm going to do, okay, to make it work is I'm going to hold the axle and the whole Scarecrow foundation piece with one hand, and with my other hand I'm going to push the crown gear down on the axle just a little bit. Okay, so now when I spin my crown gear, let's see if, when I spin my big gear, let's see if it spins the crown gear. Right, now the teeth are touching, okay, and now it's functioning properly. And you'll see that as it spins the crown gear, it also spins the whole axle. All right, so we just made it so that we can spin our big gear this way, and it spins a crown gear this way. All right, we've never done that before. That's pretty awesome. So now, because the big gear is spinning the crown gear is spinning the axle, that means anything that we add to the axle is going to be spinning as well, okay? So now we have our project functioning properly. Now it's time to add the cool design aspects to our Scarecrow. All right, so we're gonna go on to step 9. Now, if you're a farmer, all right, you wanna grow as many crops as possible, right? You wanna use as much of your land as you can, okay? And the problem is that humans love ripe fruits and vegetables, okay? When they're ready to harvest, we like to pick them and we like to eat them right away. However, birds also love ripe fruits and vegetables, and they can see the colors of fruits and vegetables just like we can, so they know when a banana is ready to eat, or when a strawberry is that perfect color of red and is going to be the juiciest, okay? And sometimes birds can get to the crops before the farmers can to harvest them, right? Because it takes a long time to harvest a farm. You can't just do it in a day. If it's a really big farm, it can take you a whole week to pick all of the crops. Okay, so we want to be able to protect as much of our crops as possible. And to do that, we want to have the biggest Scarecrow possible, which means we want to make the arms on our Scarecrow as wide as possible so that when they spin, they'll scare as many birds away as possible. All right, so what pieces do you think we could use to make the arms as wide as possible? Right, we could use ones like these, okay, we could use ones like these, right, but neither of those are as long or cover as much area as our curved blue bricks. So we're going to use these for our arms today. And to connect those to our axle that's now spinning on top of our crown gear, oh, I lost my axle. There we go. So to connect our arms to this, okay, we want to first connect a 4-dot circle piece like this. We're going to put it on top, okay, and then I'm going to take one of my 3-hole bricks, right? We're on step 9 right now, engineers. One of my 3-hole bricks, and I'm going to take a short axle. I'm going to push it up through the hole, through the end hole. Okay, not this one, but this one on the end. Through the end hole on my 3-hole brick. And then I'm going to connect my curved brick on the plus sign symbol on the very end. Right like that. Okay, so now the arm can move, but it can't slide up and down. It's not going to fall off even if I flipped it over because we have the lock brick there. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now on this side, I'm going to use a slightly longer axle. Okay, but you can use whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. You can use the short one or you can use a slightly longer one. I just thought it would look cool to have some red on our Scarecrow. It's a little bit brighter color. Maybe you could scare the birds away a little better. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to attach my long arm piece through the end hole, through the plus sign symbol. Oops. And then we're going to attach our lock piece on the bottom. Okay, and then to connect those, to our circle piece, we're going to connect half of it and the other half. Check that out, engineers. Those are some pretty long arms, right? Now remember that when we're connecting 2 bricks together, what do we want to add on top to help make sure they're both stable? We want to add our reinforcement brick, right? So we're going to add 1 reinforcement brick on top. We're going to add our single hole brick. I'm going to add another one. Okay, and then this is what yours should look like right now. Now we can test it and see if it's working properly. Oh yeah, it's working, engineers. Okay. It's pretty cool because not only does it spin fast, but it also makes a sound, right? Which would probably help scare the birds as well. If you've ever been at the beach or the park and you had a picnic out and there were seagulls coming to try and take your food, all right, then you know a little bit how farmers feel when trying to scare birds away from their crops, right? And if you want to scare the seagulls away from your food, you can run at them, you can yell at them, you can wave your arms at them, right? And all of those strategies work. So that's kind of the same strategy we're using with our Scarecrow. Okay, so now we have our sturdy foundation, our big 40-tooth gear, our crown gear. We have our super long arms, okay? But it doesn't really look like a person yet, right? Because it's missing the face. So, to make the face, we're gonna take one of our 2-dot bricks that has the plus sign on it. Gonna take my blue connector peg, push it into the plus sign, like that. And then we're going to take one of our, I call these tube pieces. That's definitely not the engineering term, but I'm not sure what the proper engineering term is. But to me, they look like a tube, so I call them tube pieces. We're going to put our tube piece on the other end of the connector gear, and this is going to be our Scarecrow's nose. Right? And then on top of that, we're going to add 2 eyeballs. 1, 2. There we go. And then on top of that, we're going to add the ears, or the hair. It's up to you what you want to say this is. Right? If your Scarecrow wants ears, these can be ears. If your Scarecrow doesn't need ears because it doesn't need to hear anything because it can see all the birds it needs to, then it doesn't need ears, and this could be hair. All right? It is up to you. Now we got our face, we got our arms, we got our crown gear, we got our 40-tooth gear, we got our sturdy foundation. Let's see how it's working. Pretty cool, right? Now, some engineers have asked me when I built this project in our live classes, they asked me about the axle being able to wiggle a little bit like this, and they were wondering if they built it wrong. You did not build it wrong. It's actually designed to be able to wiggle just a little bit, okay? Because it wants a little bit of room to be able to move and to be able to make sure that the teeth of the crown gear are in the perfect spot, okay, aligned with the teeth of the big gear. When it gets a little move to wiggle like that, okay, then the teeth on the gears can kind of move together and mash up until they're in the right spot. Kind of like how when we chew food, right? Our teeth are in the right spot, even if you chew a little bit differently sometimes, if you're only chewing on one side of your mouth or the other. Okay, so we wanted to give it a little bit of room to wiggle. And I was telling that engineer that asked that question that actually really tall skyscrapers are built the same way. They're built so that they can move just a little bit, okay, shake back and forth just a little bit during an earthquake, because what it does is it gives it some room, all right, when the earth moves beneath it. The engineers design it so the building will be sturdy even if it has to move a little bit. If they built it so it couldn't move at all, and then an earthquake happened, okay, and then that means that once the earth moved underneath the building, and then the building moved just the tiniest bit, the whole thing would crumble. Okay, so when engineers design tall buildings in earthquake zones like in California, they design them so that there is room for it to move just a little bit and still be perfectly sturdy. Okay, so if you're in a building that's during an earthquake and you feel it move a little bit, that's okay. That's how the engineers designed it. Okay, you should still, of course, try to get down to the ground floor as fast as you can, but you don't have to worry that the building's moving when it's not supposed to be. Okay, sometimes engineers design it so that there's a little bit of space for it to move. All right, and that's how we designed the axle on our Scarecrow right here. Now, we have our Scarecrow working, it's functioning properly, right? But I want you to think that if you want to expand your farm a little bit, okay, and the birds are able to get the food that is not underneath the Scarecrow's arms, right? I want you to imagine there's crops under here, all right? How do you think we could make the arms even longer? All right, how could we give it a larger radius? And by radius, what I mean is radius is the size of a circle. Okay, so I want you to imagine that as the Scarecrow spins around, right, it makes a circle, okay, for as long as its arms are, right? It makes a circle about that big as it spins, all right? So the radius of the Scarecrow circle would be about here. What can we do to make the radius of our Scarecrow circle even wider, even bigger, so that it could go all the way out here, so that it can protect more crops, okay? If we want to do that, one thing we can do is we can connect more bricks to the arms, right? So we can take our 11-hole bricks like this, and we can actually flip it upside down so that the pegs go into the holes on our long curved blue pieces like this. Just like that, we've made our arms almost twice as long, and we've made our radius almost twice as big, right? And because our foundation is sturdy, and because it's wide, right, it can do all of this without having to worry about falling over. And because our axle has a little bit of room to wiggle, even with the extra weight, the gears still match up perfectly, okay? Now, I want you to imagine if I only did it like this, if I only added it on one side, okay, then you'll notice that my Scarecrow only starts to lean towards the side of the extra weight, right? And if we kept adding more and more pieces to only one arm, eventually our Scarecrow would tip over. All right, I want you to think that if you had one arm that was way longer than the other, right, and you were trying to surf, and you always put your arms out to balance when you're surfing, right? If one arm was way longer than the other, when you were on your surfboard, you would definitely start to lean over to that side, right? And eventually, you'd probably lean so far that you would tip. Okay, so we need to make sure that our Scarecrow is symmetrical, all right? And symmetrical means that if you cut our Scarecrow right down the middle, it looks the same on this side as it does on this side, okay? Just like our arms grow longer at the same time in the same length, and our legs grow taller at the same time, we usually don't have one leg that's way taller than the other, right? We want to make sure that every time we add a piece to one side, we add the same piece to the other side so that our Scarecrow is symmetrical. Okay, now I understand that mine is not perfectly symmetrical because I have my red axle right here and my black axle on this side, but that's okay. The most important thing is making sure that they're the same length, okay? So we can add, if we wanted to, we could add even another brick. We could add our 3-hole brick like this by putting a connector peg in it. Connecting that connector peg into the black piece like that. We could do the same thing over here, right? So that it's symmetrical. Okay, and now it's even longer than it was before. And it's still functioning properly. All right. And then if we really wanted to make it even bigger, what's a really long piece that we have in our kit that would swing easily? Our string piece, right? Now our string piece, we only have one of them, so it can't be perfectly symmetrical because we have to put it on one side or the other. But it doesn't weigh nearly as much as the other brick, so it's not going to have as much of an effect. Now check out the Scarecrow. That radius is huge, right? Okay, we've over tripled the radius just by adding these extra bricks. Be careful not to hit yourself in the face, because I almost just did. Now, you'll notice right here that we have a lot of weight on it. So now my Scarecrow is really leaning forward, okay? So to help make sure that it can stay balanced, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add, right, whichever way the arms are facing, when I put the arms like this, then it's gonna start to lean forward. So I'm gonna go like this, and I'm gonna add some extra weight on the back. Not only does this make it look pretty cool and bigger, it's also gonna help it stay balanced, okay? So if you're noticing that yours is leaning one way too much, right? If it's leaning forward too much, add some extra weight on the back to help balance it out. Okay, engineers? Now, you have some pieces left in your kit. So I know that you can figure out a way to make your arms even longer, all right, than mine are. Just remember to keep it symmetrical and add one on one side when you add the same piece on the other side. I would also love for you to add wheels onto your Scarecrow so that you could roll it around to different parts of the farm. One other thing you can do, which is what someone in a class, one of the engineers in my live class shared with me, which was really cool, is they said, well, what if the Scarecrow's facing this way and the birds want to sneak up the other way, okay? What you can do is you can add some eyeballs to the back, and you can also add them facing up. So I'm gonna add some eyeballs right onto this piece. So then, if a bird is circling from above and they look down and they see some eyeballs, right, they're probably going to be scared and not want to come get the food anymore. Okay, and we can also add an eyeball on the back by putting an eyeball on the connector peg, like this. Remember, like we did with our 4-eyed monster? And then putting it right in here, in the 1-hole brick that's on the back. I gotta move this neck piece I added. There we go. There we go. So now we've got eyes in the front, eyes on top, and one eye in the back. Right? This thing is covering all sides at all times. Those birds are going to be way too afraid to come to this farm, and they are definitely go to the neighbor's farm and see if they have a boring Scarecrow that doesn't move, right? And they'll be way less freaked out. So, congratulations, engineers. You built a fully functional Lego Scarecrow using our crown gear. Thank you so much for all your hard work today. I hope that you figure out how to add some wheels on the bottom so that it can roll around. I hope you figure out how to make the arms even longer or how to make your Scarecrow even taller. All right? I'll see you again next week. Have a great day.